Hey guys, welcome to the podcast Strikes Back. My name's Connor, and you are listening to the weekly show with Ben, my good friend.
Hi.
I had to do lots of pointing. We don't have George here this week, so overcompensated on the pointing. So, got a really big show today. I'm talking about a lot of things, including a whole bunch of trailers, including one of the flagship trailers for Apple's new Apple Plus TV, as well as a couple other trailers. I didn't do as much research as George.
And some other trailers.
And some other trailers. How very vague and nebulous. Yeah, but as always, we want to start with a little bit of what we've been watching this week. And Ben, you and me have been a bit busy. Mm-hmm. Do you want to go first with what you've watched, and then we'll kind of move into what we've watched together?
Absolutely. I've been back on a bit of the horror stuff this week for something that we'll talk about in a moment.
Yep.
Kind of got me back in the mood. And I'm not sure why, because I haven't really watched a lot of really intense horror lately. And it was a stark reminder that they're really scary sometimes.
When you get a proper horror film, not like just a tense thriller or something like that, it's a stark reminder that you're like, oh, like these are designed to purposely make you feel fear.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel good.
No, it's terrifying.
I last night I was sitting at home just watching a couple on the couch, all the lights off, nobody home, and I was just sitting there like, I'm so tense right now.
It's terrible.
But the first one I watched was one called We Are Still Here from 2015, which was from how it seems, quite a low budget, no name actors in it or anything. They don't feel like proper, like no offense, like everyone performed well in the movie, but they didn't seem like, when you're watching something from a little lower down the line, you can kind of tell the performances of somewhere else. But yeah, really so effectively shot. It's basically a haunted house movie that goes in some unexpected directions. It's very over the top directions that I certainly didn't see coming. But just some really effective jump scares in there. The way the movie was shot, the camera work was almost a character. It was so like it made you so much more on edge than if it had just been a bit more standard. There was a shot where basically the way the camera moved combined with the way a torchlight came into frame on the wall scared the shit out of me. And it was just nothing scary. So that was a really interesting one. And then I checked out one that I've been meaning to watch for a few years. Because I wanted to feel something good about Andy Muschietti again. So I checked out his 2013, I believe, film Mama.
Okay.
Starring Jessica Chastain and Nikolai Coster-Waldau.
For some reason, I thought you had watched that, but
George is always talking about it.
Yeah, because I remember I watched that with George.
Yeah. That movie, man, Andy Muschietti, he shoots movies real good.
He does.
Such a good-looking film.
And he's really good with characters.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, totally. I was so happy to see Nikolai Coster-Waldau in a movie. I love watching him and stuff because Jaime Lannister on Game of Thrones has had a lot of great stuff throughout the run of that show and some less great stuff. So I'm just happy to see him pop up and other stuff. Yep. But man, that movie was so creepy.
It's got a real low-key horror vibe to it. Like it's very much obviously a horror film, but there's just something more atmospheric about it than perhaps some other films.
Well, those kids, man, it's the kids. It was so unsettling. And of course, no one had actually told me that Mama is the crooked lady from It, Chapter 1. Which I was not prepared for because the crooked lady scared the crap out of me in It. And now there's a whole movie about her. Came out before that, obviously. But I found that movie very scary and had to run off to bed after I finished watching it. And then we can segue into the Sydney Underground Film Festival.
Yeah.
Because we went to that the other day, saw a couple movies together. I watched one alone, which was The Lodge, brand new horror movie with a lot of buzz behind it.
Yeah.
Starring Elvis Presley's granddaughter, which I didn't realize until much later. Yeah, this one was like I was saying, kind of more generally earlier. I was so tense watching this film, and retrospectively, I don't think it is even that scary. I think the cinema atmosphere combined with what I think was quite a good sound system, because it's more of a concert venue that we saw it in, was just putting me so on edge. And it just,
also because you're probably pretty much... Was it as sparsely populated as the other films that we saw at that festival?
No, packed house.
Oh, really?
Yeah, except for the seat directly next to me, which I think might have been the only empty seat in the whole place, which made me feel so loved. I was sitting on an aisle.
Such a
blow
to your ego.
And there's an empty seat next to me. I was like, God damn it. But very cool. And one that I really can't say anything about because it all hinges on a lot of mysteries. It's one of those very psychological, like, is this a supernatural thing or is it not, or what have you. I think ultimately I recommend it. It's pretty grim though.
Yeah.
So if you're in a good mood, prepare to come out maybe a bad one by the time it's done.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Then we checked out a couple of other ones at the festival
that we saw together.
Mm-hmm.
Should we start on a really good note?
Sure.
The Art of Self-Defense.
Yes.
Is something that we checked out. Both of these films are ones that I really wanted to digest. They're ones that I wanted to take some time and think about. The Art of Self-Defense was one that I kind of softened on a little bit. I came out of it. There was obviously some level of mastery in it. I knew that. But there was some things that I wasn't quite sold on. Particularly that I felt like this was a metaphor that was about as subtle as a brick to the head. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought that was kind of appropriate.
And the point, yeah. Yeah,
and it kind of felt like that. I get to use a phrase that I don't think I would have ever used otherwise, from like year 12 English, that reductio ad absurdum. So taking something to like kind of comical levels of intensity in order to kind of make a point. So the more I thought about it, I thought that this film was really well executed on that.
Yeah, it's essentially a satire about masculinity and elements thereof that are less productive in society necessarily, certain ingrained things and attitudes that are kind of harmful for everyone. And it stars Jesse Eisenberg as what a beta male would call a beta male. And he gets assaulted one night and decides he needs to learn karate to
and become what he fears
himself.
Which is essentially
a weapon.
Yeah.
And like you said, it is really absurd. It's clearly not set in a real world. The way people act, the way people talk, the way people think, the way the world kind of works is all very, very off kilter. But it's hilarious, I thought, throughout. Yeah,
it's got this like weird brand of hilarity. I was somewhat off-put by it, and this really goes to show how a cinema experience can make or break. Because there was, I felt like I knew by the end of it these three people that were standing behind me or sitting behind me, because one of them would just laugh at anything. Like there was just a point where a wiener dog showed up. And he was like laughing hysterically. And I was like, oh, come on, man. Like, yeah, there's really funny parts of this film, but not everything needs a laugh. It's fine. Like, just calm down. And then there was another guy that any time someone said, I guess you could say anything like not PC or something that was kind of the point of the film, he would make this audible ugh noise. And I'm like, fuck, yes, we get it. Like... Yeah, so every time that the movie kind of made a point, I was taken out of it by these people making these kind of overzealous reactions to it.
There was the one in between them who anytime something amusing was said, he would like repeat the last half of the line or something.
Yeah.
That's so funny. On a list of the 5 worst cinema goers you get stuck in a room with, there would be 3 of them.
3 of the 5, yeah, seriously. But ultimately, the movie itself is really good. Jesse Eisenberg was, I think, spectacular, as well as, and I can't remember the guy's name, but the guy that plays the karate instructor.
Yeah, something Nivola, I think. I was watching the whole movie, I'm like, where do I know this guy from?
Yeah.
And I looked him up and I saw a few things, so I'm like, oh yeah, that could be it. Then I saw one where I'm like, no, that is it, because I watched this movie so many times growing up. Jurassic Park 3. He plays Billy, I think is his name. And it was so weird seeing him in... Basically, coming from a movie, Jurassic Park 3, which isn't very good, and nobody's particularly good in it. Seeing him in this, where I thought he was amazing. I thought he was so terrific as this martial arts teacher who is just so up his own arse. It's so insane. But I highly, highly recommend this film.
Yeah, it's really good. I mean, yeah, I recommend it as well.
Good to hear.
The other one that we watched was Greener Grass,
Mm-hmm.
which was the absurdist comedy starring no one that I knew.
We talked about this trailer a few weeks ago.
Yes. And I was kind of excited to check this out because I quite like absurdist comedy. Monty Python, which is kind of touted as one of the kind of in the upper echelon of absurdist comedy, was a major part of my childhood. So yeah, I don't know how you feel about this film, but do you want to?
It was
give it a shot.
It's a tough one because it's basically sketch comedy, drawn out to feature length.
Yeah.
It very much in that Adult Swim style of like really uncomfortable, non sequitur, bizarre absurdism. And I think it was alternatively very funny and pretty much an endurance test.
Yeah. It was...
I would say impeccably well made, beautifully shot, really gorgeous film, fantastic performances. But sitting in an almost empty cinema with sparse reaction from anyone in there was not the most comfortable experience in the world. But when it was funny, it was bloody funny.
Yeah, look, this movie was really ambitious, I felt, and that it did a lot of things right. Like some of those scenes, particularly early on, are spot on for kind of that type of comedy. The problem that I found is by the end of it, it just felt completely irrelevant. And for a movie to be that absurdist, you kind of need to stick the landing, right?
Yeah, I actually did like where it went towards the end because it felt like it was trying to actually say something, not just be a series of interconnected sketches. I'm not sure exactly what it is yet, but it went tonally into some different directions. It was a bit disturbing in parts, which I thought was really cool because there were legitimately a lot of moments where I was like, I don't even know, like I'm not laughing, but I don't know if I'm even meant to be.
It kind of goes in between a lot of tonalities of everywhere from pure comedy to almost pure horror. Like it's got a pretty decent range in that. And that's what I mean. It's a very ambitious film, and it does a lot of things right. But for me at least, it definitely didn't stick the landing, and it was at least half an hour too long.
Yeah,
it got to a point where you put it quite well actually, which is that it was just an endurance test by the end.
I think ultimately the title of the film is probably a recommendation on how to watch it, and maybe that would be a lot better. For now, I'd just recommend Too Many Cooks. You know, the Adult Swim, like 13-minute theme song, Too Many Cooks.
No, actually, no. Sorry.
If you haven't seen that, you need to check it out because it is kind of
sounds so familiar. I feel like that's something that I've
That's the festival.
That's the festival that we watched. Also, not very well marketed, I felt, because I only caught it by accident, and it had some. I mean, Greener Grass and Art of Self-Defense were two movies that we had on our radar, and I had no idea that they were coming up. So
yeah, and The Lodge. I was so keen for all three of those, and you told me about it. I had no idea this festival was even on.
Yeah, so I mean that's the kind of thing, like, I know it's underground, and maybe that was the whole point. But I would have loved to have seen a little bit more attendance there. I think that's a really cool festival.
I feel like maybe it was kind of the point though, because for the last session I was in the Lodge, which was sold out. They had a big awards ceremony beforehand, and it seemed like everyone there knew each other. Like it was like there was a short film competition and everything.
Yeah,
and it seemed like it was all uni students, and I was just sitting there like, okay, hi guys, play the movie, please.
Yeah, fair enough.
So did you watch anything else this week?
I did. I watched two things. I actually went along with one of your recommendations. Probably a movie I wouldn't have chucked on otherwise. Definitely
or ever heard of.
or ever heard of otherwise. Which was The Endless. Which is it an A24? No, it's
no, pretty independent.
Else.
I think very low key. Benson and Moorhead, the directors. Yeah.
And I was really, really impressed by this movie.
Yeah. Now, I recommended this movie specifically more to George.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm very offended you watched it. No, just because I feel like this is really his bag. It's kind of a sci-fi, Lovecraftian sort of cult story. But the caveat that I gave to him was this is clearly a no-budget film.
Yeah.
And I think you have to go in that way because
This was like clearly shot on an iPhone.
yeah, pretty much. But it's what they do with that zero budget. I think it's really impressive. Very inventive, engaging all the way through.
Yeah, I mean, it's you kind of start out with this almost morbid fascination with the relationship between these two brothers and where they've come from, and as that part of the story begins to kind of not wear on you, but like just not become as interesting, they introduce all these elements that are like full on fascinating. And there is there's a not a gimmick, but a mechanic in this film that I found really cool.
Yeah.
And
I had to run out straight after it and read everything every interview they've done. I don't usually do a lot of that, but there was clearly so much of a world that they had devised here outside of just what we saw on screen.
Yeah.
That I kind of needed to know more.
Well, you told me about one of those little caveats or one of those little kind of world building things that you wouldn't have guessed.
Just a very small part of the film that is endlessly fascinating.
Yeah, it's very similar to the I guess tidbit that you can find out about Groundhog Day, which is that he's meant to have been in this for like 5,000 years or something like that, and that adds a level of depth and horror to that film, which is otherwise this kind of feel good comedy. So yeah, just that little fact was kind of like, oh, that's so cool.
Now, were you distracted at all as a Jake and Amir fan by one of Benson Moorhead, the directors and stars of the film, looking exactly like Jake Hurwitz? Because I could not stop focusing on that throughout the film.
The leader?
No, just one of the two brothers.
No, I didn't make the connection.
We're gonna pull up some pictures after this.
Yeah, that's gonna now it's gonna bother me. Yeah. Right. So I watched The Endless. Highly recommend, but with the same caveat that you made, Ben, which is that go into it fully understanding that it is a low budget film. I also then chucked on. So you made another recommend last week, and I thought, well, while I'm on the bandwagon,
the bandwagon.
That's what exactly what I said. Thank goodness we don't have a recording of me saying it any other way. I wanted to watch The Nightingale, but I realized that I've never actually seen The Babadook, which is that director's previous work, and I wanted to be able to watch The Babadook before I watched Nightingale, so I chucked on The Babadook. I did this in the middle of the day. No, sorry, not in the middle of the day. Towards the end of the day. So I had about an hour of light left, I think.
Tricky.
And I made a mistake. I had to pause this movie like 4 or 5 times because I was watching it alone in my living room. Like it's not how I should be watching horror films. But this was an awesome film.
So good.
And it is surprisingly deserving of the hype that it's been given. So yeah, I was really impressed by that film, and just the creepiness of the character or the Babadook character is just, yeah, it's terrifying.
Yeah, I was saying to you the other night that just the title of the film evokes the name of that character, which immediately brings to mind the repeating motif of it saying its own name.
Oh,
the sound design in that film, like I get chills every single time I hear the word Babadook because I hear Babadook, and yeah, that movie's brilliant, and also a really good, just a well integrated kind of subtext to it, which is not subtle, but so many horror movies fall into really weird territory whereby they'll have a really thinly veiled metaphor as part of the story. There's a famous quote: "A monster is never just a monster."
Yeah,
they always represent something, and a lot of movies take that in bad directions. I feel clumsy, unintended, maybe, but I feel a lot of horror movies just have bad messages.
Okay,
and this is one that I feel really sticks the landing all throughout. Just kind of nails it.
Yeah, it's well. I mean, it's for what I got out of it, it was quite clearly about mental health, and the ending was really, I think, appropriate for that. Also, one of the best depictions of insomnia and potential psychosis that I've ever seen. I don't know if you've ever, I don't know if you've ever done the experiment where you can have a bunch of like 4 people or 10 people stand around you, and they've all got cue cards where they start shouting things at you, and you're meant to try and listen to someone read something nice in front of you, and it gives you the idea of what psychosis might feel, or in that particular instance, like schizophrenia. And
sounded like the internet.
Yeah. But it's like kind of one of those rare moments of kind of seeing or getting a very slight glimpse of what mental illness might be like, and it's terrifying. And I found like this movie did a really good job of kind of conveying a tiny slice of what insomnia might be like. I think it did a really effective job of doing that.
Yeah, nice. Jennifer Gant, the director, absolutely in love with her after her first 2 films, and I hope you can get to see The Nightingale before it's out of cinemas.
Yeah. Oh, it's on I think Amazon Prime.
Wow, that's weird. I don't understand this world anymore.
Yeah, neither do I. Although it might be nice to see in the cinema if I've got the option.
That's it for you?
That's it for me for movies that I've seen this week. So
let's get on with the news then.
Let's.
First up, HBO has ordered a pilot for a House Targaryen prequel series. This is Game of Thrones, obviously. In addition to the original Long Night series that they've already got in production. Deadline scooped this story, and it alludes to the Dance of the Dragons, aka the Targaryen civil war that drove the dragons to extinction. Any interest in a Game of Thrones prequel series about the Targaryen lineage?
Sort of.
Oh, so
yes.
First, let's start at the beginning. Are you interested in them doing these prequel series in general?
Sort of.
Sort of.
So I think that there is a lot of rich history in that world, and I think that if you go far back enough, that you can kind of wipe the slate clean and just do whatever you need to do with the story. So it's the same kind of concept that I think Star Wars is potentially embarking on now, which they can go and do a trilogy or another set of movies that is completely detached from the Skywalker series. I think that that's a really good opportunity to leverage the world that's been built, but also create something new.
Totally.
So I think that Game of Thrones has the same opportunity. Obviously, there's been a lot of groundwork laying in terms of world building, and there's a certain way that this story needs to go, but I think that still gives quite a bit of wiggle room for the creators to go in and do something really interesting.
Do you think the Targaryens are a wise place for them to be starting? Like, I feel like if they have in any way poisoned the well of this franchise, it's mostly through Daenerys Targaryen. Like, do you think that that's a wise place for them to go? More dragons? Like, that seems to be one of the less well-received of all the bad, poorly received things.
Yeah, look, I think that most of the complaints around the final season was what, season 8?
Sure.
9, 7, something? I don't know. Whatever the final season was.
Yeah.
A lot of the complaints were around that particular character and the arcs and the writing of those particular events. Daenerys Targaryen was, during the first 4 or 5 seasons, really well written. So I don't think that there's anything wrong with going,
just purely from a marketing point of view, though. Like, do you think it's a bit risky?
No, I don't actually. Yeah. I mean, the whole venture is risky. I don't think that this is really what's going to tip it over one way or the other.
Well, yeah, in a broader sense, do you think they've poisoned the well too much just to even be doing these sequels or prequels at all?
No. People love this shit.
Yeah.
People love a good prequel or a sequel.
Solo.
Yeah, right. But no. But again, they're doing it the right way.
Yeah, which is really separated from what we've seen before.
So I think that what would have been a mistake is to do a sequel like The Trident. Is The Trident the I mean, not the trial. Whatever the war was before, with Stark and Ned, or Ned is Stark, whatever the king's name is. Basically, I've just erased all the names from Game of Thrones from my brain for all time.
Series is over. You just flush it out.
Basically, the events that just preceded the books and the TV show.
Yeah, the Mad King and everything.
Yeah, with all the characters that you already know. I think that would have been a mistake because you're leveraging too much, right? Again, I think this is the right way to go.
So how about the original, like the first long night? You think that's...
Look, to be honest, I don't think
that's kind of more White Walker focused, I think.
It is?
Yeah. See, that's a tough one. That maybe even more so than the Targaryen one because, like you said about... I don't even know if you said this. Maybe I was just talking to myself. But about how following these things that have... as prequels, that we know they're ending. They have a fixed point where they end. And a lot of people were not happy with how the White Walker story resolved.
Yeah.
Like, it feels fairly anticlimactic, and it would feel a lot more anticlimactic if there's like a 6-season TV show about even more lead up to that.
Well, exactly, right? And I think that, to be honest, that's not the way to go because the White Walkers... I just don't know if there's enough material there, really, around if you're thinking about the events of that. I mean, you can always create stuff around that. But I think that there's a really rich history with the Targaryens and there's, more scope for what happens there. It can maintain that kind of Game of Thrones political thriller style, whereas that's not really going to happen if you do a TV show about the First Men and the Long Winter. It's going to be really kind of more nature-based. Like,
it'd be great if it's just The Walking Dead.
What they could do is they could do kind of more of a horror style series with that. But even then, it's tough, right? So, yeah, I don't know. If they're going to do a sequel, I don't mind them jumping into that territory with the Targaryens because I think that there's a lot to explore there.
So as a fan, say you were the guy calling the shots, is there something else entirely that you would have picked instead of these two things?
I mean, I'm a fan of the TV show. I don't really know too much. Like, I've not read the books.
You haven't read the books?
No.
Huh.
I normally
You're such
read...
a fantasy nerd.
I know. I normally read books and then watch the TV show or watch the movie. I very rarely come to a fantasy series after. And I tried reading the books after watching the first, I think, 2 seasons. And I found it really difficult. Because I was, like, reading scenes that I had watched note for note.
Yeah. I read the first book as well, and it was very similar in the parts that were actually translated to screen.
Exactly,
I felt
right.
a bit redundant at the time.
Yeah, and I found that difficult because I was like, I've already watched this, and there's no way that, seeing sword fights on the big screen is not... Like, if it's, taken... note for note, it's going to be better on the screen.
So no.
No, I haven't read it. So,
Fair enough.
No, look, I don't have a particular desire for how that goes. I think that Game of Thrones, I wasn't as disappointed as a lot of people, but I don't really need to see more.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. All right, next up, Deadline reports that Robert Downey Jr. will be reprising his role as Tony Stark in next year's Black Widow film. So this was ridiculously casually dropped.
I know,
in
right?
a story not about Robert Downey Jr. whatsoever. They were just like, they just mentioned Endgame as his swan song, and then in brackets it was just like, oh, and he's going to be in Black Widow as well.
Yeah.
Now, obviously the timeline makes sense for this to happen. It would almost be, depending on how many other characters from the MCU are going to be in this, it would almost be a more obvious or more weirder if he wasn't in it. Because this movie's going to take place after Civil War and before Infinity War.
That's official now?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So this hasn't been retracted or anything, so it seems like this is just a fact.
Yeah, and like you said, it makes sense. Like,
for the story, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, having him there. I don't know how I feel about that being his last on-screen.
It won't be, though. Like, if he's coming back for this, I think
he'll be in it.
He's not done. Yeah. I think this could be a nice way to kind of soft just bring him back. Like there's talk about him, having left behind like an
An
AI
AI.
hologram version of himself. Which whatever, just go do it. It's fine. Like if they're not going to make Endgame the end of his character, then sure, just keep him around.
Yeah, no, I think that it's fair game for sequels. I think let's not. There's a bit of that maybe be a step too far as I'm concerned if they bring him back post Endgame. I'm happy to see him in as many prequels as they want to do, but nah, I don't think that we need to see a Tony Stark post Spider-Man essentially.
It's going to be interesting to see how they actually frame this Black Widow film, because it feels like the way they want us to treat it is that 5 years from now, if we've got all our MCU Blu-rays on the shelf, they want this one to actually slot in between those older movies, like where it fits chronologically, like
as like a Phase 3.
Yeah, like they're kind of retroactively making a Black Widow film that they should have made when people wanted a Black Widow film.
Well, I mean, if they made a Black Widow film when people wanted it done, that would have been
just before or after Avengers in 2012.
That would have been Phase 1, if maybe beginning of Phase 2, which is exactly what you just said. Sorry. Which, I mean, it's absolutely. I find myself not really that excited for the Black Widow film now, just because I feel like it is so late and it feels so irrelevant, because it seems as though all the characters in this are now dead in the universe.
That's the thing. That's what's kind of making it interesting to me, though, and that's not a good sign. Like, that's not what it should be. But the fact that it is so out of place and they're making it so late, and it seems kind of pointless after everything that happened to her in Endgame.
They are going to need to, like...
This movie really needs to justify its existence.
Oh.
And I hope they're doing that somehow.
Seriously.
And Tony Stark's inclusion is very interesting. Be interested to see if anyone else pops up in it as well. Anyway, in further cinematic universe house cleaning, Todd Phillips has said that Joaquin Phoenix's Joker will definitely not meet Robert Pattinson's Batman in future films.
Was there ever any... was this a question that people were actually asking?
Robert Pattinson gave an interview recently that people extrapolated, kind of left the door open for something like that. And I think, when you're talking about this confusing continuity stuff, I mean, this is a new era beyond the one we just got used to, which was everything's connected, which is now some things are connected and some things aren't.
And some things aren't, yeah.
So I think people, want to speculate like crazy. But so this is the nail in the...
The way that I look at this film is that it is in no way, shape, or form connected to the DC universe. It's my big gripe with this film, and it's not to say that this is a bad film. In fact, it's probably the exact opposite. I think that this was probably a really good film that has, for me, sullied itself by
not being connected to Batman versus Superman.
No, by kind of arbitrarily slapping the Joker on the top. Because, like I said, this feels like I said this, I think, 2 weeks ago or a week ago or something like that, which is that this film feels like a gangster film that had an IP just kind of slapped on to it, as opposed to a film that was, let's re-envision the Joker in a different way.
Now that presents such an interesting dilemma, doesn't it? Because it's like, what is better? Let's say this film is as good as everyone's saying.
Yeah.
Which it's not going to be. But let's say it is the game changer that people talk about. Is this game changer that is not really a comic book movie, but has the Joker thrown on it, but it's really good, is that better than just a god-awful movie that was built from the ground up to be a superhero movie like BVS or something?
Not necessarily. Like, I mean...
It's like lose-lose.
I think this would have been a good movie whether it had the Joker on it or not. And that's the difference.
Do you think it would have been a good movie whether or not it was connected to a greater kind of DC cinematic thing?
I don't necessarily think that this movie should be connected. Again, I don't think that this movie should be a Joker film, because I don't think it's... I mean, I haven't seen it, right? So I can't really say with any
because we know there is
certainty.
There is more stuff from the Batman mythos in the film. We don't really know at present how that fits in. Maybe it does something worthwhile with it. Maybe not.
Yeah. But I have a suspicion that this film will only play lip service to anything that is actually integral in the DC, and that, again, once all is said and done, you could take away all the IP and it would still be effectively the same movie. And for me, that's disappointing. Right? So I don't really care whether it's connected or not.
Yeah.
In fact, I'd rather it just not be, because it kind of proves my point.
I still remember that, giddy little feeling, though, when you first start watching those MCU movies all those years ago, and you're like, oh, shit, anything could happen. It's all theoretically connected, even though it took them a long time to really kind of interweave things too much. So I don't like Todd Phillips being so final about this, just being like, no. Because there's no way they could ever make it work. But I don't know, the idea of seeing like a really great Batman up against a really great Joker, that's always enticing.
Yeah.
And we have had that happen. But, yeah, oh well.
I mean, I won't say no to it again.
What? Oh, right. Anyway.
Not that I said no. Yeah,
Now, in actual exciting news, Warner Animation Group will develop and produce a film based on Funko Pop vinyl figures. Now, it is a gosh darn shame that that George isn't here this week, because he loves those little Funko Pop bastards. Whereas I think, as an avid figurine collector, I think they are just consumerist garbage. Yeah, just slap an IP on it, like the Joker is. Just take a cheap figurine, slap a familiar face on it. They all look the same.
It's marketing 101. It is kind of genius.
Absolutely, yeah.
Particularly for the prices that some of these things are being flogged at. That is pure supply and demand. Like, it's actually ridiculous. Like, if you get some of these, like the figures that we have on the set here, if you're paying quite a bit of money for them, you can kind of understand why you're paying that money, because there's genuine craft that goes into creating these figurines. If you're looking at all these fucking Funko Pop vinyl things, you're like, this is just a quick mold. Like, there's no real, like, this is pure marketing.
It's a template. Not
Not to say that most toys aren't, but like there's different levels to it. And a lot of these are being, sold for, some of these are being or over $100.
Yeesh.
And I that blows my mind.
And they're worthless once they're sold. There's no
Collectible value.
Yeah, they're just anyway.
At least not for now.
They feel like, I don't know. It feels like something a relative would get you and be like, "Hey, you like this thing, don't you?"
Yeah.
It's like you don't care.
What do you think about the prospect of a movie?
Okay, so they're clearly just making another version of the Lego Movie. It seems like a bad time for this to be happening after the Lego Movie 2 did not do well at all.
Well, also it feels like what every toy company has tried to do, which is take their property. Like, this feels like Angry Birds and Emoji Movie. It's exactly what it feels like.
Yeah, but with the added bonus of like the Lego Movie, they're probably going to have a lot of IPs they're going to be able to slap onto it.
I mean, even so, no company has done that better. I'm just quickly check myself. I don't think any movie has done that better than the Lego Movie. The Lego Movie has been, I keep saying Lego. The Lego company, Lego, has been, really, really smart about the way that they have branched into different mediums. They are in video games. They are in movies. The way that they deal with existing IPs, as well as their toys. I think they are kind of like genius level when it comes to giving consumers this broad range of ways that you can interact with this thing. And it feels like a lot of these other companies are just trying to copy that, essentially.
Now, that being said, this is Warner Brothers Animation, same as the Lego Movie, sort of. I mean, it's Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
So they specifically came out saying this is not a cheap marketing move. The people behind this have a great idea for a really good movie, which of course is marketing. But
That's like if you fall for that, that's like the. I mean, I don't even know how to describe that. Them just being it's the most genius move ever. They're being like, they're just saying this isn't bad. Don't worry.
well, and that's how bad it is. The fact that they address it pretty much in the announcement.
Yeah.
Because it clearly seems so cynical. But I mean, we're also skeptical of the Lego Movie before that happened. So like, it's not that they can't make something good out of this. It's just that. Fuck Funko Pop figures. I don't want this one to be good.
You kind of, if it does turn out to be good, it will feel a lot like a scene directly out of Lego Movie 2, funnily enough, where the main character or one of the characters sings that I'm not bad. It'd be kind of like that.
Yeah, I don't know. With any luck, that one will never actually come to pass.
Yeah.
Next up, Universal has released a Jurassic World short film called Battle at Big Rock. Have you seen this, Connor?
No.
Little 8-minute short about a family camping and some dinosaurs show up and hijinks ensue. It's directed by Colin Trevorrow. It's clearly just keeping the IP fresh in people's mind.
Is this like sanctioned by someone, or is this Colin just kind of losing his mind?
Yeah,
what could have been?
No one's letting him direct anymore after he's fired from Star Wars. No, this is proper Universal. It's clearly bridging the narrative gap between Fallen Kingdom and the next film, because it involves kind of dinosaurs spreading out into the wilderness of our world. The credits for the short film have a bunch of little scenes of just people encountering dinosaurs in like, kind of found footage way, just around and about. It's essentially what the last two movies called Jurassic World should have been, which is, the Jurassic World. It's good. I would say I actually liked it more than the past two films, certainly.
It's not too hard though.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not revolutionary, but,
I still have such major gripes with the end of the last Jurassic.
Well, yes, that was a bit ridiculous because you watch the end of Jurassic World and you say, okay, there's 20 dinosaurs out there. The army's going to have them dead within an hour. But Colin Trevorrow, who I do not like very much as a filmmaker, did have kind of some good stuff to say about the next film, which he'll be back to direct, I believe, saying that this is not going to be like a war between humans and dinosaurs. This is going to be a world where they're spreading out into the wilderness like regular animals. He says he likes the idea of not, dinosaurs attacking the suburbs, but the idea that you could be driving down a foggy road and encounter, a big monstrous animal. Which I'm like, that's a much more sensible way to take this.
It's effectively what bears are.
Exactly. No, he cites that. He says like bears or
alligators
or
sharks
or
or anything like that. Yeah.
We'd be going into their territory ill-advisedly. Which I think could be a lot of fun and definitely sounds more enticing than the last two films in the series to me. Is there any hope in your mind left for this franchise?
No.
Okay.
No, I just think that... No. No. I think that the last movie had a chance to really do something cool with the franchise, and it was utterly squandered. And I think that the concept of this is kind of dumb.
So did you like the last film more or less than the previous one?
I didn't even watch the previous one.
You haven't seen Jurassic World?
No.
Don't bother.
Basically, that's why I haven't.
Okay.
Because no one has been like, you got to see that, or even come close to that. No one's been like, oh, check it out if you want. It's a cool little dinosaur film. People have pretty unanimously gone, oh, no, don't do that.
Are you excited for the next film to find out which of the original trilogy cast members they'll bring back for 30 seconds?
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
No, look, this Jurassic, the last film had such potential as far as I was concerned and opened with such a cool scene that I don't feel like giving this franchise another shot.
Fair enough. Well, unfortunately, it's still very financially viable, so it's not going anywhere just yet.
Just yet.
Maybe they'll make another good one. God, that first movie's great. And finally, speaking of squandered chances, M. Night Shyamalan has signed a deal with Universal to write and direct 2 new thrillers, one arriving in Feb of 2021 and another in Feb of 2023. So this man just keeps on getting chances and chances and chances. His most recent, of course, was early this year with Glass.
So I think this is a guy that kind of deserves chances upon chances, really, because when he's firing on all cylinders, when he's really doing good work, it's just that. It's really good work.
It's amazing.
Split was fantastic. Split was really entertaining. If you go through his back catalog, he has some really good films in that. So I think that this is...
And possibly as many hits as misses. Almost.
Possibly.
Yeah.
And look, there's some that have hints of, I don't know if I'd say genius, but they have hints of really good, at least world building or a lot of people really hated After Earth, which I didn't actually mind.
It's his only film I haven't seen, because I was just about to say I have not watched a movie of his that I haven't found something worthwhile in.
Yeah.
And I say that as someone who's seen Lady in the Water and The Happening and The Last Airbender.
What was it
in the one I draw the line.
Yeah. What was it in Airbender that you thought was worth?
I thought that was a really well constructed film visually. I thought his eye never ceases to impress me.
Yeah.
And I don't know, little bits and pieces. I remember not hating it at all. Really,
as a technical director, he's really good.
So
yeah, it's not surprising that he's got another chance. Effectively,
not at all. No, and I do think he's earned it by mortgaging his house to self-fund his last couple of films or whatever it was. Like that's someone who really wants to be out there creating and is I think when he's, like you said, when he's firing on all cylinders, it's pretty worthwhile. How are you feeling about Glass right now, his last film?
Utterly forgettable, really.
Yeah. That movie retroactively kind of hurt Split and Unbreakable for me, unfortunately.
I never saw Unbreakable and Split. I am more than happy to just have as its own thing. I seem to be able to do that.
Split fares a lot better in that regard, because it definitely
right up until the end,
Unbreakable sequel.
It is its own film.
Exactly.
Right up until the last 20 seconds. So Glass for me wasn't. I don't think it was as bad as you guys felt it was. Largely because I just hadn't seen Unbreakable. There was no kind of spoiling of the original material. But it also didn't really do anything that spectacular for me. And I can't really remember where I was at with our review, but I definitely know that I haven't soured. I've just kind of forgotten it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bummer, but I am always interested to see more from him, and I hope he does some stuff that is just fresh and new and unconnected to any of his previous work. So good on him. What time is it, Connor?
It is trailer time.
My lord, yes it is.
Yes, and on our first for the list of trailers, we have HBO's Watchmen. I still don't know what this series is about.
Yeah. It's about who watches the Watchmen or something. I don't know. I think this looks great. I also can't exactly place what it's doing, but it sure looks topical and looks like it has stuff to say.
It'll teach me something.
Yeah.
The earlier trailers kind of made the police force in this look malevolent, whereas this most recent trailer seems to be saying that they're almost the protagonist. I got the sense of that. Or at least, I'm not sure. I can't really follow these trailers. So there's a certain level of disinterest for me, because I can't help but watch this and think I'd be getting this if I had read the comics.
Yeah, which I highly recommend you do. But it certainly looks complex. I also can't pick out exactly what the thrust of it is or who I'm meant to be following or rooting for, but I'm really keen for it. I think it looks very well made.
Yeah, no, I'll definitely be checking it out.
Yeah.
That's HBO, so it's for the more or less a stamp of quality most of the time.
Yes.
Next we have Little Monsters, which is the gory zombie comedy thing.
Yeah, Lupita Nyong'o is a primary school teacher who gets stuck in a zombie outbreak with a class full of little children.
Yeah. I love the trailer. I'm terrified that the trailer is going to be the best part of the film.
So this was the Red Band trailer, really hammered home the fact that this movie's not pulling any punches.
Yeah.
Despite being full of children.
Yeah.
There's still just that one laugh out loud moment with Josh Gad in it that I didn't expect to work as well the second time.
No, it's still just really funny. It's one of those lines that you kind of repeat to yourself, and it makes you chuckle. Problem is, I said it right after we watched it. That's going to be the funniest line of the film.
Yeah, quite possibly. It's been a good long while since I've seen a zombie movie that I actually really liked.
Ooh, a zombie film specifically.
I honestly can't think of anything after Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead that I've been like, that was a really good zombie movie.
Dawn of the Dead?
Yeah.
Oh, surely there's been something since then.
What
What year was Dawn of the Dead?
Because that was like 2003 or something. Like that
when
was
was Shaun of the Dead? Yeah, Shaun of the Dead was more recent than that.
Was it though?
I don't know. I'm assuming it was. Like, all right, give me a second.
I think it was right around that time.
Surely it had to be. There's got to have been something that's been decent. Shaun of the Dead, 2004. Yes.
Well, when was Dawn
by
of
a
the Dead?
year? Oh, I assumed that you knew.
I'm gonna look up zombie movies.
2004. God damn it.
I watched Zombievers last year. That was alright.
Oh, so did I.
Oh, okay. Train to Busan, 2016. That was really good.
Okay.
It was Korean,
Zombieland was 2009.
Yeah,
Good zombie
we've
film?
discussed how we haven't gone back to Zombieland, so we don't actually know if it's good or not.
I
anymore.
did.
When? What, recently?
In the last 6 months, I think.
Was it good?
Yeah.
Right. World War Z?
Yeah. 28 weeks later.
That movie I found pretty forgettable, except for one really cool scene.
It is.
Warm Bodies, that was Romeo and Juliet
Yep.
with zombies. Oh, it's fine. But there's so many of these things, like, that's kind of fine.
Yeah. When was 28 days later? That's 2002, wasn't it? Ah, bugger, it was.
Yeah, so...
Yeah, they haven't really been firing off with any really good zombie films. That's disappointing.
Quantity over quality. So I don't know if this will be the one to break the streak, but I like the trailer. So good luck to it.
Interesting. All right, moving on. We have Ford v Ferrari, which is called Le Mans 68 as well.
Where?
I don't know. But I saw a trailer for it where it was called Le Mans 68, and I kind of I had to I checked it out. And I was like, "That have they just taken the same like?" And it was.
It's so funny, those regional differences. They seem so arbitrary a lot of the time where they change the title. It's like Blackcoat's Daughter a couple of years was called February here, the most generic title ever.
Yeah.
But like Avengers, one of the biggest movies ever, it's called Avengers Assemble in the UK because of the TV show from the 60s
With
called The Avengers.
Oh no, there's a TV or not a TV show. There's a movie with
That's based on the TV show, I believe.
Is it really with the same cast?
I'm not sure if it's the same cast.
God.
I think it was like a remake.
Yeah.
So yeah, that kind of blip in history movie was the reason they called The Avengers something else.
Oh my goodness.
And also the reason that none of the sequels could be called Avengers Assemble, which would have been a good name. Oh yeah, Ford v Ferrari. Yeah. So Ford has 90 days to make a car that can outrace a Ferrari.
Yeah.
No one thinks they can do it, but if history tells us anything, it's they probably did. I haven't looked it up.
Yeah. Sorry, Le Mans 66, not 68. My apologies.
Wow. We would have gotten letters for that one.
I know, right? From all the, really diehard Le Mans fans.
Yeah.
I'm really interested in this. I've seen this story a couple of times.
Yeah.
The true story behind it is really fascinating. Just as like a kind of a feat of what shouldn't be possible and what kind of the sheer tenacity of Shelby. I find that that story really fascinating. I recommend to anyone that wants to go and look into it, definitely do it, because it's really fascinating. So I these kinds of films always run the risk of being a bit dull. Like a lot of these stories are great to read in an article, but don't quite hold up in a 2-hour film.
Christian Bale though has a great track record with true story films. I feel just between like The Big Short and was it The Fighter, his boxing one? Was that a different movie? With Mark Wahlberg, because that was great. His Dick Cheney movie.
I think it's The Fighter. I don't know that him being in it is a stamp of approval for me, but because I really like the story, and I think that there is enough source material there and enough kind of, I don't know, drama, I suppose, or just like, I think they're both really interesting characters as well, and they've got 2 really good actors to play those characters. So that's kind of what gives me a lot of hope.
That's enough, yeah.
How do you feel about James Mangold, by the way?
I love his Wolverine movies.
Yeah.
Both of them. Did he direct The Grey, the Liam Neeson fights wolves?
Ooh, let me check that.
Film.
I don't think so.
Am I thinking of the other guy? There's these 2 directors I get confused all the time.
What have I got here? He's got Walk the Line, another kind of sort of biopic, which I actually quite
never
like.
watched it.
I watched that years and years and years ago. I did enjoy it. 3:10 to Yuma.
Never watched it.
Weird
I've heard
film.
great things. Russell Crowe.
Otherwise good. I also really like westerns.
Yeah.
Girl Interrupted, Night and Day, surprisingly
Night and
good.
Day, I was going to bring up. I didn't like that movie very much.
Didn't like it
at
at
the time. No.
Yeah. Look, nothing that's really probably worth mentioning beyond that.
I'm just going to shout out The Grey again because I really like that movie.
Did you really?
I love that movie.
I love the soundtrack.
People slept on it. People kind of just ignored it because it looked stupid, and it so wasn't. It was really kind of deep and meditative.
I really quite enjoyed that film as just actually that's probably the best way to you have a way with words, Ben.
Thank you.
Meditative is probably the best way to describe it. It's also the best way to describe the soundtrack as well. It's kind of one of those films that despite the subject matter, it kind of brings me a certain level of peace. There's another movie, not nearly as good, but I get the same kind of feeling from it, which is Centurion, which is a film with Michael Fassbender. I don't know who did it.
Neil, what's his name? He directed The Descent.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, and a bunch of Game of Thrones.
But for some reason that
Neil
movie...
Marshall.
Oh, Neil Marshall. Okay, yeah. That movie... Neil Marshall did that. No way. That movie, for some reason, again, despite the subject matter, I really enjoy it. Like I really get a kick out of it. So, anyways, next we have Midway, which is
speaking of meditative.
based on the true events.
The Battle of Midway. So Roland Emmerich, remaking Pearl Harbor. With a lot of Independence Day in there, it looks like.
A lot. This looks like a CGI fest dialed to 11.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like it's trying to get away with, it's a bit too full on for me. It's kind of one of those movies that's like, a dash, and by a dash I mean like a bucket load of patriotism, a bucket load of CGI war stuff, and like a bucket load of B-grade celebrities.
It feels like we moved past this kind of war movie a while ago. Like I feel like there's
this
more.
Feels like Pearl Harbor.
Exactly, yeah. And I feel like in a post Saving Private Ryan world or something, like there's just a little more nuance to this stuff.
Yeah.
Like this, looks very, very hoorah. Let's save the day. And Nick Jonas has that terrible little moustache that.
For me, war films that I like are films that don't necessarily focus on war. Like, there was I'm talking like it's like a little indie film. There was a film that came out a couple of years ago called Fury with Brad Pitt. That I thought was absolutely fascinating because it focused in on basically the relationship in this one little tank. And yes, it's set in war and it's got lots of war scenes in it. What really mattered. But in this, it feels as though the kind of hoorah is what matters.
Totally, yeah. It's very Roland Emmerich, stock standard. You're there for the spectacle and the events, not all these little almost humans running around throwing dialogue at each other.
Exactly right. And for me, that just kind of it doesn't really do it for me.
Roland Emmerich, I don't hate as a filmmaker, but he cannot pull me into a cinema without like some kind of sci-fi hook or like some disaster thing or something. It's a war movie. I'm gonna go to someone much more interesting as a filmmaker than him.
Yeah, he's also responsible for one of my most hated films of when was it came out? Like 10 years ago, I think. Whatever it was, 2012. That movie angered me on so many levels, largely because it relied on the same mechanism or the same gimmick, something like 3 or 4 times throughout the film. And I've never had a movie treat me like more of an idiot.
What about his earlier film, The Day After Tomorrow, where Jake Gyllenhaal's running down a hallway? He's like running from cold air or something.
It's the exact same gimmick.
Yeah. And they just get away just in time.
It's like that's the only thing that, oh my God, I never even thought about that.
But you don't want to watch the movie about the guy who gets away, 2 hours earlier, right? That would be interesting.
No, but I'm fine with one of those scenes per movie. You don't get to put 4 of them and just continue the suspense and action by doing the exact same thing over and over and over again.
Now I want to see the movie where the action hero like jumps away from an explosion like 18 times and the movie just misses him every time.
He did The Patriot as well. Oh, look at that. Anyways. Next we have Queen and Slim. This is a really interesting film.
Black Bonnie and Clyde, as they put it in the trailer.
Black Bonnie and Clyde, yeah.
Starring Daniel Kaluuya, a couple on a first date get pulled over by a cop. Things go very south. Cop gets shot dead, and they are on the run. This looks awesome.
It does, doesn't it?
In every aspect. Just visually, this looks like such an interesting movie.
It took such a different route, because I knew nothing about this film before we watched the trailer, and it went from it felt like 3 different movies. It went from kind of like almost indie romance to action film to kind of
something a lot bigger.
Yeah. The scope really opens up towards the end. Really interesting premise. It's going to be it's going to be controversial, I think.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, this movie looks like it has a lot to say, and it looks like it's saying it very loudly. And I don't really want to talk about it too much before I've seen it, because I'm keen for it.
Yeah, I mean, just from a visual standpoint, and just like what looks like a cool action film, or like just not even an action film, but like just cool looking, feeling film. I'm very much down with it. Next we have SEE, SEE, which is the Jason Momoa Apple TV Plus.
Great name.
TV series that they'll be releasing November 20th, I think. It's actually really soon that they're releasing this content.
We haven't seen many trailers for their stuff yet, have we? I think there's
a couple that were
released thing recently. Yeah.
So we probably should have put that in this as well, but we haven't. Which actually looked really good. Which details like a morning breakfast show that's kind of devolving and kind of jumping into chaos. It made me feel like I was watching.
That sounds like Anchorman.
With a serious tone.
Damn it.
But also has Steve Carell in it.
Okay.
The SEE is really cool concept though. So it's this world where I think it's like 200 years in the future, everyone in the world is blind, and it's kind of like Children of Men, which is like they have two kids that can see. It's the gimmick. That's the hook. But just from a visual standpoint, this movie looks incredibly polished, and it's no surprise that the people that did Planet of the Apes are involved.
Yeah, I mean, it is very reminiscent of, let's say, the second film onwards in that new trilogy. I've heard $15 million an episode, which is no small tally. For me, this looked kind of ridiculous and done before. Like you mentioned like Children of Men, which
Bird Box.
I had not thought of, and you shouldn't have mentioned.
Yes,
I'm like, damn, that's a good movie. And I don't know, this looks a little silly to me.
Look, this didn't really feel like a well-cut trailer to me, but the concept I quite like, because it feels like Quiet Place, Bird Box, all those other things where there's like that kind of gimmick where they can't see or they can't hear or they can't talk or something like that. It feels like that, but in a setting that doesn't normally get shown, which is this kind of post-apocalyptic. There's tons of post-apocalyptic settings, but with that particular gimmick, I quite like it. I like the idea that here's a society that has to function without sight.
How did they? I want to know how they figured out that babies can see. Did we mention that there's two babies born and they can see, and that's like the.
Yeah, well, he kind of does the throwaway line of "there's something different." I'm assuming that they'll think of something relatively clever.
I feel like it has to be pretty clever. Anyway, I'm definitely not going to get Apple TV Plus. So someone
really?
else will have to. Absolutely not.
I have a feeling that I will.
Yeah.
Even though I'm so avidly against
all the streaming services,
all these different kind of producers of streaming services. The difference being that I'm so heavily invested in Apple, and that's how they get you.
Is it bundled with anything? Do you get Apple Music or like?
Well, actually, sorry, I should
Apple
clarify.
Store or anything?
If there is a bundle, I will get it. I don't know if I'll get it otherwise.
Because I have Apple Music and I rent the occasional movie, but...
Yeah, I purchase a lot of things on Apple TV. Sometimes rent things.
It's just their original content, then... Sorry, Apple.
It will be, but it's... I can't remember what they said. It was going to be like $4 a month.
I saw that. I think that would be the American price, which is cheaper than pretty much any... Amazon Prime, I think,
is about the same.
Yeah. Which is fine.
Yeah. Look, and if they can bundle it in with other services, then I'll probably jump on it as well. They're all about the whole ecosystem thing, so.
Can't wait for that Disney Plus, baby.
Yeah. As much as I hate the concept.
I keep seeing that shortened to D Plus around the place, and I'm like, that does not sound good.
Yeah. Diz Plus. Lastly, we have trailer time. No, wait, that's not right at all. I just had a stroke, apparently. Living with Yourself. Oh, my God.
Oh, my God, I was so scared and confused. I was like, I must have missed the trailer for trailer time, during trailer time.
People are looking at, where they are in the video being like, did I skip back? No, Living with Yourself, which is honestly one of the most interesting Netflix trailers I have seen in a very long time.
Yeah.
This is... Ruddy Boy doing something that looks as though it's a mix between comedy and drama thriller.
Yeah. The trailer covers a lot of tonal ground. Paul Rudd goes to some facility where they say they can make you happy, improve your life. He wakes up, everything's great, he feels much better. Then in the middle of the night one night, another Paul Rudd shows up, very confused. Seems like this place cloned him and tried to kill the other one, and now he's got to live with two Paul Rudds.
I love the concept that just one of these Paul Rudds is worse in almost every way.
I thought you meant the concept of there being two Paul Rudds in the world. That's
great.
I love that one.
Also fantastic, yeah. No, I think it's really inventive. I think it's really cool. I love Paul Rudd. this kind of gets all the ticks that it needs.
Mm.
You know, I'm not nearly as harsh on Netflix content as you are.
Mm.
I think that they certainly flood the market with a lot of content, and not all of it is really good. But I think that when they do good work, it's really good. Like, you know, some of our favorite films of the last couple of years have been Netflix films and TV series.
I don't know about that.
Haunting of Hill House, Annihilation.
Not a Netflix film.
Right.
They just got distribution. Mute. I love Apostle, and yes, I love Haunting of Hill House. I will definitely give you those two.
Yeah, thank you. It was a close one. Onwards. That's all the trailers. Did you have anything else to say about that one?
No, it looks cool. I might actually check that one out, which I do not do for a lot of TV series, especially Netflix ones.
Yeah. All right, so we have question of the week.
Okay.
This one comes from one of our YouTube videos, Mike Wells.
Hi, Mike.
I used to know Mike Wells
Crazy.
back when I lived in Canada. Crazy world. Mike, if that's you.
Get off that channel.
Who the hell do you think you are?
Any friend of Connor's is an enemy of mine.
He says, my question is, what film do you think would actually benefit from a prequel, and why?
Oof. Jeez, I hope you've got something in mind. I'm going to have to sit on that for a sec.
What movie do I think would benefit from a prequel, or would I like to see a prequel for? Could potentially be two separate things. One movie that I would like to see a prequel for, oddly enough, is Star Wars. Because it worked out so well last time. No, I think that when I say prequel, I mean just rip it back thousands of years. I think it would be really cool to see, you know, some of the content that takes place really in the early days of that overall world. So yeah, I think that's also a good way to save that franchise in general. I'm trying to think of another. Do you have any other ideas in terms of films that would be?
No, I can't think of, because the movies that I really love, you know, the ones that have really rich, amazing worlds, generally something I love about that movie is the fact that they're able to establish that world within the time they have in that film. And may leave you wanting so much more. I can't think of any, like, maybe my answer would have to be a movie I don't like, but I think has an interesting world.
Well, that would probably be where you'd want to go with this. But I'll give you an example of a situation in which it's worked, which is Dark Crystal. I think that movie has massively benefited from a prequel, because the prequel kind of took what is an awesome world but an otherwise kind of lackluster story and expanded upon that and really done something very interesting with it. And I know you've only just watched the first episode, but overall the series, I was really impressed with that.
Yeah, I mean, that is, as far as prequels go, I've seldom heard of any been that well received. So good on them for actually being able to take something that is kind of a dirty word within the industry and make people okay with it. I have thought of an answer. It's the series that the films that I revisited this year and was very interested in, which is The Matrix, which has a prequel of sorts in the Animatrix already, which is a bunch of short films kind of taking place before, during, and after, or not after, the films. And I think that world is a perfect example of what I was saying, is so interesting and just alludes to so many little things in the films that just barely touch the tip of the iceberg with the kind of existing material that I know the Wachowskis kind of developed to just be set dressing. And I would happily watch a movie set in like the Robot Wars or something. I think that's all so interesting.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because there's the first two short films in the Animatrix are basically just a recap of how it all went down between like the invention of AI and the robots using humans as batteries, and it just has to fly through all of it, but it's all so interesting.
Yeah, no, I think that'd be really cool. But I agree with you. It would have to be a movie that, good or bad, has created a world in which you
you could explore more.
It's got to stand on its own 2 feet to some degree.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it sounds like a bit of a cop-out, but Star Wars is probably, just because when I think about prequels, or that I want to see, I want to see Knights of the Old Republic, effectively.
Yeah.
I want to see something that is detached from everything that's happening in that Skywalker verse, time period, lineage, whatever that is. I want them to leave that alone, because the overall universe of Star Wars is fascinating.
Yeah, and Star Wars is so unique in that you could travel, a million years in any direction, and it would still be something so different than the real world.
Yeah, exactly.
That you could tell an interesting story in it.
Yeah, we mentioned this last time on the podcast. I'm a huge fan of world building. It's one of the reasons that I really love the Halo games. Not necessarily for the gameplay. It's relatively the same throughout the entire series. It's really about the fact that this world is so fucking fascinating. Yeah. Cool. That just about does it. I can't remember how George normally signs off.
Well, that's been the show, everybody. like us on Twitter and message us on MySpace. Bye.
See you then.